Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice-a-week long-form podcast, because I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Thursday, everybody. Tracy St. Clair over on YouTube. Good morning, Nick, my man. Let's go on this amazing Thursday. Yeah, guys, we got some freight moving. We won some loads this morning. It's been a busy morning so far. I almost had to postpone the show, but I always find time to go live out here. You guys know where I won that freight from, right? At the end of the day, there we go, up there, green screens. That is who I get all my pricing from on all the freight I'm actually moving inside of my brokerage, you guys. Kevin was on here yesterday. Hit him up, you guys, greenscreens.ai. I mean, legitimately, every load that I bid through them. Corey Buchan, happy Thirsty Thursday over on YouTube. Get it, my man. Yeah, you guys, it's been a solid start to March for us, fortunately. You know, obviously that comes with a lot of the first couple of months of the year it was rough, right? Like volumes were down, opportunities were slim, and it's expected, but it's always easier to sit there and talk about it from that perspective. But when you're actually living it every single day, it's a different perspective, because it is, trying to feed your family just like everybody else out there who watches this show, and you're out there fighting and trying to develop business and everything. And I will say, because I'm on I think day 67. Yeah, day 67 of 75 hard. And this program it's my favorite favorite program to be on. And it helps with all this, right? It helps with the mental toughness aspect of business and life. And I actually just finished this book this morning, the book on mental toughness by Andy Frisella, who is the founder of First Form and Supplement Superstore and the Live Hard program and all of that stuff. And yes, I am 100% a Andy Frisella disciple. I follow what that guy says. Like I say in front of the show, I want to, do it. I want to learn from the people who've done what I'm looking to do, and he's done it, right? So, going through that and dealing with the emotions of building a business, right? Because it's extremely challenging. Like I've said before, and I'm going to say it again. But, it's one of those situations where when you control your controllables, it really, really helps out there. It helps with, getting those tasks done no matter what. And, I'm out on the road next week. I'm flying out to Philly, and then I'm going to be down in Atlanta, and then I'm going up to Raleigh, North Carolina. And, it's going to be a lot compacted out there. I'm going to go out, visit some customers. I'm going to stop into Modex for a little bit and as well. And, it's one of those things that I will literally do whatever it takes. And I getting in front of people is, I truly think, the biggest separator in business, right? Like I look at it like this. I would rather invest $1,000 in a flight, a hotel, and a rental car to go out and visit people when I'm building instead of taking any other alternative out there, to build your business up, because there is no hack, right? And I truly feel like I'm just willing to do what others aren't. And I know not a lot of people are willing to get out there and see people in person, if they, and again, I understand everybody's got, expenses and everything else and a budget that they have to follow. But from my perspective, I have the money to invest in getting out there on the road and seeing people. So I'm going to invest the money. I'm going to invest the time, because I truly think it's going to pay off. in the long run to get in front of people. You know, and again, you don't have to necessarily fly anywhere. Own your backyard. I talk about this all the time. Own your backyard wherever you are located in the United States. Own that area. Make sure everybody in that city knows where you are, knows who you are. I would highly recommend that. Let's get down to some articles, huh? Yeah, I got some articles. Obviously, the market is a ever consistent topic that is going to continuously show up, you guys. So I was going to say, what's his face? Oh gosh, dang it, I just drew a blank. Ken Adamo put a good article out on Twitter this morning, and you know, obviously, there's always going to be controversy in freight markets, right? No matter what, people's opinions are, you know, are always going to differ. Everybody wants certain things until it would actually be a reality. Um, and you know, I really enjoyed Ken's article and his stance on this. And from my perspective, it is nobody wants government controlled rates, right? Like nobody does, because this all came up in 2020. And for just a brief history lesson out there, a similar, you know, low rates happened in 2020. People went to go do, you know, they wanted to protest it. They wanted a bare minimum rates, and you don't want that, because when they were all making, and when everybody was making money in 2021 and 2022, there was like, they wouldn't want that, because if you have a minimum rate, you're going to have a maximum rate too. And in that article, you know, Ken talks about this, and I agree. That would gut the small carriers. That would absolutely gut the small carriers, because all the megas would be able to come in and get up all the capacity to get all the freight. And again, that's not a free market at the end of the day. And nobody actually wants that. They only want it when it's not in their favor, because if there's a minimum, there's going to be a maximum. And nobody complains when they're making money. And I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying that it's cheap to run a trucking company or anything like that. I know how hard it is. My dad ran one for 40 years, right? Like I had a firsthand experience of market shifts and everything else. I've been in this industry literally my entire life, but you can't cry foul when it's not in your favor, but then expect everybody to do everything when the rates are in your favor, right? So it's like, this is just what a free market is. And again, I'm not saying that it's fair that there's people out there that are posting $1 a mile. Fuck those guys. Don't take their freight. That's the best way to combat cheap rates. Let that shit sit. All right? Let it sit. Plain and simple. You want to see brokers post higher rates? Stop fucking taking those prices. Let it sit for a day. And then ironically, all the money that they actually have in the load is going to start to appear on the load board, right? That's the best way to combat a quote unquote cheap rate. Because if you're going to live out on the spot market every single day, you live and die by that. All right. Plain and simple. Because yes, there are some absolute shitbags who are going to do that every single freight market, no matter what. It is going to happen time and time again. So if you really want to combat cheaper rates out there, don't take the freight. Plain and simple. Let it sit. Let that shit sit there, because people will always find more money to get the load moved when they are at a risk of failing on the load. So that's just a little rant on top of it for you as well, you guys, because that's just, you know, that's just what I like to do. All right. First article we will break down today, though, is from fleetowner.com. As always, every single article that we break down is the links are uploaded on the YouTube channel, as well as the Coffee with the Freight Coach audio only replay, which is up on iTunes and Spotify almost immediately after the show. 2024 won't get much worse for trucking, analysts say. While trucking faced a challenging year in 2023, industry analysts say that the good news is the market probably won't get worse in 2024. FTR Transportation Intelligence recently finalized its market condition indexes for December. The index has found that the trucking market faced challenging conditions through the end of last year, while the shipping market maintained exceptional health. We finally see indications that larger carriers are no longer absorbing the bulk of driver capacity displaced by failing small carriers, suggesting a steady tightening of capacity that eventually could spark a turn in the market. If the recent upturn in diesel prices continues, the capacity drain among small carriers might accelerate. Even so, the industry will need stronger freight demand, and we still don't see any significant inflection in volume until at least the second half of the year. And speaking of diesel, I always get that from the EIA, you guys, and it's at $4.02 a gallon nationwide right now, EIA.gov. The trucking conditions index uses a mixture of freight volumes, rates, fleet capacity, fuel prices, and financing costs to measure industry health. Positive numbers signify good health and negatives signify bad health. In today's shocking lesson, the FTR's shipping condition index uses freight demand, rates, capacity, and fuel prices. The index for December was a minus 4.31. It has fallen nearly 3 points from minus 1.35 in November. And then besides November, however, December index represents the negative overall trucking market conditions since May. And then the fall between November and December was largely due to higher costs of capital and deterioration in freight rates. So, with that being said, how might it look in 2024? Their outlooks for carriers remains pessimistic. It says the company expects more below neutral market conditions for the year. The outlook for shippers in 2024 remains positive, though less favorable than it was. Our forecast is that it's not going to get any better for shippers and probably not any worse for trucking companies. And we see a sort of prolonged kind of strengthening in the market. In other words, a long period of time in which not only do we start to see more freight growth out there, but even more to that point, more capacity needs to come out of the system. I think that this is an interesting take at the end of the day. It goes, because it does. And we were talking about this yesterday with Kevin, right? Like, nobody's advocating for anybody to go out of business. But the reality is, with supply and demand, that there's a lot of supply and not a lot of demand. That has a negative effect, right? And if there's a lot of demand and not enough supply, that has a positive effect on the trucking companies out there, right? But it is very safe to say right now that there is not a lot of freight to a lot of trucks, right? In simple terms. And to make matters even more competitive out there, everybody honors their contracts in a slower time, right? So there isn't anything that is going to add any life into the spot market anytime soon, right? I'm convinced of this because on certain lanes that I move, rates are increasing. All right. Now, is that across the board? Of course not. That's not across the board. This is a small sample set, but naturally speaking, rates are going to go up. Things are going to change. I think it is an absolute crapshoot on what happens throughout this year. I truly, truly think that way. I think, though, like I've explained this a lot, right, on how this is going to be. It's probably going to be a gradual increase throughout the year, right? As capacity, continues to possibly leave the market, or maybe they park their trucks for now and then go work for a company. However that happens, at some point it will flip, right? And kind of like what I was talking about earlier, nothing about being in business is fair. Nothing about being in business is guaranteed either, though, right? Like, just because you started a business does not mean that you're guaranteed success. It does not mean that you're guaranteed any form of return on your investment. You could lose a shitload of money possibly, right? Like, that's the reality of how business actually works. But what can you do to fix it, right? No matter what can you do to fix it? I think the most elusive thing for most people in business is this device right here, your phone. If you want to move more freight, you have to meet more people. If you're a trucking company, for example, you cannot walk in somewhere and expect somebody to give you business because you have a truck, right? What can you do differently to get that business? Like we've talked about this on this show, wherever you're located in that city, in that town, wherever it is, put on a nice pair of jeans, a tucked in polo, and a nice pair of work boots or something like that, and go around and introduce yourself, right? Like, go to GoDaddy.com, buy a web domain, get a G Suites account. It's going to cost you maybe $25 a month to have your website and your email, because that's what it costs me, right? Like, I literally just renewed all of this stuff the other day. Okay. So it's $26 a month. Go get some business cards made. But most importantly, you need to know your break-even point. You need to know your profit margin, and you need to know what areas you like to run, because you're not just going to walk in there and they're just going to give you a plethora of freight. All right. You have to earn it. You have to do what's not what others aren't. That's the best piece of advice that I can give anybody, whether you're a broker or a carrier, whatever that looks like. You have to do what others are not willing to do. Okay. I will always choose to do the opposite, because everybody, like, if there's one thing that has been true this entire about 4 years that I've been self-employed, is that when everybody is talking about going to the right, turn around and sprint to the left, because that's where all the results are. Most people don't know their head from their ass. Okay. So frankly, if you're out there taking advice from somebody, and again, you can fucking throw me into this. I don't care. If you're taking advice from people who aren't in the industry, who don't have trucks, who don't have a brokerage, that's your first fucking mistake right there. Okay. You got to decide who you're going to take information from. All right. You really have to check and see, have they actually done the shit? Do they have, as the kids say, receipts for their successes? All right. Because again, if they're out there dueling out advice on how to build a successful trucking company, they better have a fucking fleet of trucks on the road, or they better have actual tangible experience in the industry. Everybody knows a bullshitter, right? Quick money doesn't exist. It takes a very long time to build a business up. No matter what course you take, no matter anything, at the end of the day, it's on you as the business owner, right? Like, I can't cry foul because my revenues are down, right? I can't cry foul because I'm not on board. It's my fucking fault. I'm the fucker who owns this thing, right? There's got to be more accountability with this. There really does. Nobody's guaranteed fucking anything in business. You're guaranteed that you have to work really hard to build it up. That article, you guys, anyways, yeah, a little ranty there, but you know what? At the end of the day, it needs to be said, because it's just one freight market or another. It's going to go back and forth. And then when the market flips here and the carriers are starting to make more money again, all the brokers are going to be out there complaining about how carriers need to focus on relationships and all this other bullshit. And these are the same fucking brokers who are posting freight for $1 a mile right now. So until you take the accountability to change the way that you operate, this industry is not as hard as people like to fucking bitch about online. Anyways, you guys, that article was from fleetowner.com. 2024 won't get much worse for trucking. Sam Hunter, my man, says, good morning, coach. Thank you for your help. Hey, dude, that is awesome. I'm so glad you found that. Oh, dude, that was the Sam. When we talked, man, I felt for your customer. I really did, man. That's brutal. I hate that they had to go through that. Next article we are going to break down here. Let's see. Sorry, I was just checking my email. Like I said, we got freight moving this week, you guys. Today, actually. Anyways, next article is from FreightWaves, and I always try and choose two separate sources when I'm talking about stuff like this. I will try my best to do that, you guys, because at the end of the day, every data company out there is going to have a different opinion on this stuff. But again, like I've said before, like, the overall freight market doesn't affect 95% of the industry, right? The overall freight market, and again, I'm not saying that from a opportunity. I'm literally just stating the people who are affected most when the market drops are the publicly traded companies, because their revenues are down, then their stock prices are down, and everything else. The most of us, yeah, the market's tight and the opportunities might be small, but like, there's still opportunities for us to get out there and do it if we want. Freightwaves.com, is the rate roller coaster about to turn? Let me see here. It says that contract trend of price long term or contract rates to the floor is not over, but the data is slowly ending. Looking at the past 6 years of dry van contracted rates and van tender rejection rates, we can see a lagging correlation between the two. Rejection rates tend to lead to slower to move contract rates. And then what is a tender rejection rate? Tender rejections are a measure of carrier compliance or adherence to covering freight under a previously agreed upon price. Low tenders, the tender rejection rate is a percentage of tenders the transportation provider declines to cover. The higher the number, the tighter the market. Historically, national figures below 5% have indicated that contracted rates will fall, as is there more carrier capacity than demand for freight. When it's above 7 to 8%, rates tend to increase. It should be noted that FreightWave's Sonar tender and contracted rate biases toward large shipper to carrier contract agreements, which represents the baseline. I actually appreciate that little notation right there, that it is rate data is towards large shipper to contract carrier agreements. Then it goes on to say there have been 4 general cycles of transportation market over the past 6 years. Let me see here. 2019 market. I'm not. They put a couple of other years in there, but 2019 is kind of the number that a lot of people utilize a lot as a benchmark. So it was characterized by a rebalancing of capacity after an overheated capacity growth period. The above chart shows net changes in active motor carrier of property operating authorities against the FMCSA. It is not a pure measure of capacity, since an authority can represent any number of trucks. I think that is also a really good point there. It also is a biases towards growth out there. Rejection rates averaged just below 5% from February to December of 2019. And then yada, yada, yada. Unfortunately, the growth proved to be unsuitable bubble that began bursting in 2022. I'm obviously skipping over some stuff here, you guys. Contract rates fell rapidly from July 2022 to spring of 2023, but have slowed since. And then rejection rates bottomed in May of last year. What to do, it says. For carriers, it's a game of survival. For shippers, it's an exercise in risk management. For brokers, it's a balance of both. Shippers have the least sense of urgency, but most control. As with all freight markets, success is determined by how much preparation was made in the previous cycle. Shippers can do the most to control their destiny at this point. Maintaining service should be the goal out there. Service providers need to be vigilant, it says. Watching the market closely for signs of disruption is the easiest action, but sometimes hard to do if only looking internally. The timing of a cycle turning has been impossible to predict with precision, but there have been signals that it is approaching. All right. So this is what will literally happen throughout this year in all reality. So say the market does shift the way that that they're saying, which I think it does. So I just want to be abundantly clear. Rates are going to be raised by carriers first, and it's going to be lagging by customers. Okay. So essentially, it's going to be a major balancing act for a lot of freight brokers out there. Okay. A lot of you, because you're not going to be able to raise your rates to your customer. You can try, but they're going to be like, not going to happen. But rates are going to go up from your carriers. So you're going to have to get crafty, right? Because there's probably like a 6 or an 8 month lag that comes along with it. Now, I could be wrong, right? Like customers might just be like, oh, of course, yes, we'll raise our rates 20% for you. But I've never seen that happen. So in my experience, there's going to be when the shift happens, rates are going to go up from carriers. Customers are going to keep rates the same, and they're going to push back on any price changes until failures start to become a common. Because, you can only sustain losses for so long in business before it will eventually, somebody's going to say, just give the freight back. From a business development standpoint, it's going to be a great year for you. I truly feel that way. If you're out there hustling, if you're out there putting in that sales work right now, it will bear fruit at some point this year, because inevitably, I think it's just, data or statistics. Again, I went to public school, so take all of that with a grain of salt, but it's only a matter of time before you fall into a customer or a shipper's lap that just had a load, failed on for the second consecutive day. And then they're going to ask you, what do you got for me? And then you're going to be able to go in there with a reasonable price, and then you're going to move the load. And then you might not see something for 2 weeks, but another shipment is going to come your way. And then that's your time to shine, right? There's that slow buildup from that. But service failures will start to increase. And then when tender rejections start to rise, which they inevitably will, because that inflection point is going to happen, right? People can't run freight at that rate for forever. So they're going to start rejecting tenders. And then that generally triggers a a rebid and everything else and repricing and stuff like that. So those are some key things to really look out for throughout this year. But tender rejections are going to be extremely low. Probably, I don't know. We'll just shoot. Freight Coach Adamas is going to say mid-year. We're going to say June or July. That's when tender rejections are going to start to rise. And then when they start to rise, just keep your eyes peeled because that's when those opportunities are going to start rolling in. That article was from FreightWaves. Uma Taylor, good morning. Keep on going. Being disciplined is the number one rule. Keep knocking on those doors with a positive, sunshiny attitude every day. I appreciate that, Uma. But that's going to be it for today, you guys. I got to get back into the saddle. I got some freight to move. So that being said, tomorrow, Q&A day. All right. So if you guys have any sales or operations related questions for the transportation industry, you can drop them in the live stream tomorrow or DM them over to me. I will answer them on the show tomorrow. As always, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network. Yes, this is how we grow, but most importantly, this is how we can help more people, is because if you saw value, chances are your network will see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.